ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. So, mind management. We are on the fourth topic for today. I'll do a very quick and brief review of what we have discussed, just to help us know how the flow of discussion is building up. The very first topic, titled as Kabhi Khushi, Kabhi Gum, which had a subtitle of Identify and Resolve Temporary Position of Pain and Pleasure, where we tried asking a question, who am I, who suffers? And not only who suffers, but in fact who enjoys also. And we had an elaborate discussion, almost close to 2.5 hours or 3 hours approximately. And the essence of the discussion was, first of all, according to Vedic science, our existence is at 3 levels: physical self, the subtle level, and the spiritual level. Physical level is the body, subtle level is the mind, intelligence, and false ego, and the spiritual level refers to spirit, soul. The nature of spirit soul is Sat Chit Ananda. That's what is its nature. Body is a dead matter made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether. Just like this table, or let's say my computer here. They do not undergo any pain or happiness or any experience, just like a camera or robot for that reason. So we are not a robot, we are a human being. So what experiences, or who stores these experiences and emotions, is a function of the subtle body, which comprises of mind, intelligence, and false ego. So soul is always Sat Chit Ananda. The body is a dead matter, which is like a vehicle driving a car, but there is a passenger who's driving it. So it's a body made up of elements, so they do not experience pain and pleasure. So with our discussion, we came to a conclusion. It is the mind. It is a mind which experiences pain and pleasure. And a very simple example for you, if in case you have missed our previous discussion, to help you understand this is, when you are disturbed, mentally disturbed, although you are hungry, you don't feel like eating. How many have experienced this? We feel like we have loss of appetite. Mind is disturbed. What is disturbed? Mind is disturbed. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, when Sanjay is describing the grief of Arjuna, Sanjay does not say Arjuna was terrified or grief-stricken. Sanjay says Arjuna's mind was grief-stricken. And similarly, when Arjuna describes his own situation in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he says, my dear Lord, my mind is perturbed. He never said, I am perturbed. I can never be perturbed. If you think I refers to the body, how can a body be perturbed? Which means you are saying the table is experiencing the pain and pleasure. How can the table experience? Never experiences. And if you understand the spiritual level, the soul, and that is always Satchitananda. So it is the mind. So that was our discussion largely. Of course, we had a lot of other points to make around it, like that. And we gave an analogy of a vehicle, where a vehicle is compared to a body, and there is a driver and a passenger. The driver of that vehicle is not you, but is your mind. You are a passenger. Let me ask this question to all of you. Imagine you are sitting in let's say you call for a Uber cab or Ola cab. Now, with that understanding, you should be instructing the driver where to take you, which means the driver should be listening to you. But imagine if the driver is not obedient to you. Driver does whatever he wants to do. How many of you see you will undergo panic attacks? How many of you say you'll feel fearful? Raise your hands. You're saying take right, but he's taking you in a different direction. He's not listening to you. Yes? Now you know why people these days experience so much fear, anxiety? Because our mind is not in our control. Mind is going in his own direction, wants to do whatever he wants to do, and we feel like out of control of life. And an experience of that helplessness, just like it's like a kidnapped situation, right? When you're kidnapped, you feel like helpless. You would feel like helpless. You don't have an experience of it, but you would experience helplessness. Similarly, is the nature of a person, even living in a palace, yet he experiences helplessness. I cannot do things because life is not in my control. And what is not in control is not about life, is what our mind is not in control. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Shri Krishna emphasizes, he punctures again and again on this point, or hammers on the point again and again, that we need to control our mind. The uncontrolled mind is the worst of the enemy, and the controlled mind is the best of the friend. That's what we need to control. Hare Krishna. I saw some hands up. I don't know if that was for some questions, but those hands are not up now, so I'll continue. So that was what we discussed. Car is equal to body, and driver is mind, and passenger is soul. So that was the first topic, titled as Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum. Then the next topic was mind management and mindfulness. Subheading was tap the interactions of body and mind. So first of all, in the very first, it had two parts also. Very first part we discussed, how do we create mindset? You know, we all have our own mindset. You would say some people are a little negative oriented. For anything they find, oh, this is all bad, destructive, pessimistic. Some people, even in pessimism, pessimistic situation, they find some hope. It's a mindset. Understand? So point is, how did we create this mindset? We create this mindset with how we engage our knowledge acquiring senses with this world. Knowledge acquiring senses means the eyes, the nose, the ears, the tongue, and the sense of touch. How we engage with the sense objects, which means this world. These knowledge acquiring senses actually feeds impressions to our mind, and according to that, we are creating a world within us, the reality of world. How many of you acknowledge and understand all of us have our own reality of this world? And we're kind of quite convinced this is how the world is all about. Yes or no? And it is quite often for most of us, the reality of world that we think where we exist in could be quite different for all of us. Making sense? Why? The world we see outside of us is nothing but a reflection of the world that we have created within us. And with that we see, we say we see from our eyes. You don't see with your eyes. Eyes is just an instrument to pass information. Who processes that information? It's the mind. If you look at an object, eyes is just an interface that takes an information, passes it on, but does not analyzes, cannot analyze. Intelligence or the function of that processing is not with the object called as eye. It is with the mind. And how does mind will process? Mind will process based on what previous data it has. So what mindset you have created based on that, you'll process everything that you have today. If you have already created a negative mindset, for example, let's say in relation to another person, if you have already created this perception about him that he's envious of me, whatever he does it just to belittle me. Even if tomorrow, genuinely, he comes on a day of Diwali to bring a box of sweet for you, he will think he has come to insult you. Yes or no? I mean, how can somebody gifting you a box of sweet could be an act of insult for you? And if somebody tries to tell you, no, that's not what he is doing for you, you would say, you don't know. You don't understand me. How many of you have had this situation saying that, you don't understand me. You don't know me, what I'm going through. So the world that we have outside of us is first of all created within us. That was a point. Going back to the slide deck again. That is a point that we have discussed through this slide. We create our own world. And this is how we do it. We have discussed that. And then in the next topic of this mind management, we had further discussed about the relationship between the mind and the body. How the mind and the body interacts. That was largely a discussion. And we learned through this discussion that although we say I am the controller owner of the body, but that's not the fact. We only have 5% control on our body. And with this, only 5% control is a medical fact. Even modern science recognizes 95% activities with our body are happening on its own. And even with 5% control on our body, we have caused so much damage to it. Yes or no? Imagine if we were given the majority share, we would not be living today. हाँ या ना 5% में इतना सत्यानाश मचा रखा है इसका. If you go to Ayurvedic doctor ना, he'll say तुमने इसको कचरे का डिब्बा बना रखा है. If you go to an Ayurvedic doctor, I'll show you now, many Ayurvedic will say, you made a trash bin out of it. You're feeding so much junk into your body, this has become nothing but just like those who eat meat. So it is said you have created a graveyard within you. You're feeding a dead meat like that. So 95% are involuntary and 5% voluntary. And then we discussed, the concluding point was, how does a body act? Does body act as I want it to act? I say, okay, I want to raise my hand. So then my hand is raised? No, it's not like that. For a case of a paralysis, he wants to perform an action, but that part of his body cannot. So it is wrong to say because I will, I feel, and then I will. That's how actions are performed. It is not always like that. It seems like I feel, therefore I'm able to do it. But what happens in the case of paralysis? You still have the body part with you, or any other ailment. You cannot act on it. And the secret is given in 3rd chapter or 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse number 23 or 26. I don't remember the number exactly, but it is Updrashta Anumanta Cha Bharta Bhokta Maha Ishvara. The connecting link between the mind and the body, which makes the desires of the mind manifest through the actions of the body, is Paramatma. Until the sanction of Paramatma is there, it's not possible. And then third topic titled as hijack. Each one of us have been hijacked. By what? Mind. Mind is our greatest enemy. That's what we saw last time. And we saw the greatest enemy, not exactly the mind, but is the lust, which has overtaken senses, mind, and intelligence. And we had a whole analysis of how lust defeats us, how lust covers us, and how we can defeat the lust based on the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita. With that, now we come to the fourth topic of our mind management series, titled as Making Habits and Breaking Habits. Here the subtitle is Improving Decisions and Changing Old Habits. How many of you think it's a need of the hour for me? Improving my decision making abilities and changing some habits. Hare Krishna. Those of you online, you seem to be online. You have to give me some confirmation, so I know. So let me repeat a question for all of you, okay? Some of you have turned on your camera, so you're acknowledging. All right. So your affirmation gives me impetus to speak further. So which means it's making sense to all of you and you see a need of it. All right. So let's continue our discussion ahead. So improving decisions. Now how do we react to any situation? It is said there is a stimuli and there's a response to it, right? And between every stimuli and a response, there is a gap. There should be a gap. And in that gap lies our greatest freedom to create our destiny. Getting through? Within that gap of stimuli and response lies our greatest freedom to create our destiny, which means that gap gives us an opportunity to make the decision to how to respond. And how we respond creates our destiny. Now, let me ask this question to all of you. How many of you consciously respond, or how many of you unconsciously respond, or how many of you do both? Conscious, unconscious responding. You getting it? Both? Largely both? Let me ask this thing this way. How many of you think majority times it is unconscious responding. I have a set patterns. If somebody behave like this, by default I'm gonna behave like this. How many of you, if you're not able to get this, let me ask this question. How many of you have felt and have said, मैं तो ऐसा ही हूं, स्वीकार कर लो वरना भाग जाओ? You know, how many of you got this word, right? So those of you online, making sense? मैं तो ऐसा ही हूं. If that's the case, actually you're acting unconsciously most of the time. So decisions, we're going to talk about how to improve decisions, going back to the slide again. And then we'll also discuss about changing old habits. How we create new habits and how to get rid of old habits. Particularly not the good old habits, but the bad old habits. Fine. Let me give you one or two examples of how this habits traps us. It's an interesting story. It's a story of some people were traveling on a boat in Calcutta, and suddenly that one of the person sitting on the boat, is a very old story. He was traveling, moving from one village to another, crossing the river by a boat, and that man saw some paisa, some coin floating on the Ganges bed, and immediately put his hand and he was trying to capture it. While trying to do that, he slipped out of the boat and he fell into the deep Ganges. Bachao, 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 he's screaming. And I don't know how many of you have seen big boats of Calcutta or big boats in Bengal. The huge boats, they even put, they put low tempo also on it. Somebody slipping from it is a big thing. So he slipped, bachao, bachao, bachao. So one man came forward and he said, give me your hand, give me your hand, give me your hand. And that fellow is just not responding. And he's screaming, bachao, bachao, bachao. And I'm saying, give me your hand, give me your hand, give me your hand. And he's not responding. And this man is about to drown. And suddenly the boatman, who knew this person, he says, Saab ji, ये कंजूस आदमी है. इसने जीवन में देना नहीं, लेना सीखा है. इसको बोलो, take my hand, he'll catch your hand. And the moment he said, take my hand, even before he completed the statement, he said, take, he captured his hand. So I hope it's making sense, So this is what? Unconscious response. You getting it? This is habit. Habit is what? Unconscious response. The stimuli, we respond. We have created ourselves in such a manner. So that's the point about this. Similarly, there was this thief. Is another story Srila Prabhupada would quote. There was this thief. Thief means habituated, right? To steal. That's what you call it. You can call it kleptomaniac also. So he decided no more sinning, no more stealing. And he thought, I will go to Haridwar Dham on parikrama and take bath in the Ganges, stay in some ashram there, and by visiting a holy dham, I'll purify myself of all my bad habits that I have, bad karma that I've accrued. So he joined some group of people who were traveling there, and in the night when they reached Haridwar, they boarded a particular lodge or ashram, and they decided to stay there. It was a big dormitory where they all were staying. Everyone went to sleep. Now when everyone goes to sleep, one person stays awake, known as thief. Right? That's his time to wake up. He doesn't need an alarm to wake up. Very punctual midnight alarm, by naturally. Now this man woke up without even an alarm. Now he saw an abundant opportunity. Almost 40 people are sleeping and their luggage is all over the place. So today he's going to have a jackpot. So he got up and he's now scanning, from where should I begin my, bounty hunting? From where do I start with it? And his habit is forcing him to do it, but simultaneously there is another voice saying, "Arey, tu bhul gaya, tu aaye kyun yahan par? Did you forget? Why did you come here? You came here to get rid of this habit and you're going back to the same old habit." There's a huge tug of war, and finally he gave in. Finally he gave in when everyone got up in the morning. There was a huge hue and cry. "Oh, where is my bag? Where is my bag? I lost my bag." And all the 40 people are screaming they lost their bag. And then this man came in front and said, "Please don't worry. I am the one who have misplaced your bag." Arey, why would he confess? Because his habit was so strong that he could not give in. And he did not want to do it. His determination was also strong. So he made a compromise. What? He took up everyone's bag and put it into the next room. Stealing bhi ho gaya, stealing nahi bhi hua. Getting it? He took the bag and kept it into the next room. So both things got worked out. And he said, I'm sorry, I'm habitual thief. And I didn't want to do it, but my habit was so much forcing it. So I took it and kept everything in the next room. All your luggage and baggage is there like that. So that's what the point about going back to the slide again. So changing old habits is a subject matter, needs attention. So let's take a look. Every species is struggling for survival. Take an example of a mouse. What you see is a desire trap. The mouses are generally captured because of this cheese. They put it and they get trapped. Now, point is, for a mouse, you can see the weak point is tongue. And that becomes a point of struggle for it. Similarly, if you take an example of fish, how fish is captured again? They put a bait to the hook and the tongue gets caught into it. Again, similarly, a firefly, the weak point is the eyes. So attracted to the fire, they rush into it, they burn, and they die. So, point is, every species is struggling for survival. So they did not knew it was trap. They went to eat it because it's their food for survival, and they got trapped. Intelligent human being. Now, for each of these, for example, we saw there was one desire trap, and they got captured. When you talk about intelligent human beings, has created an intelligent trap, a design trap for trapping oneself. So much that these days even you have a statutory warning for many things which should not be consumed. Even this intelligent human being, despite a visible warning, yet he consumes and becomes a victim. So now tell me, who is more intelligent? The animals or the human being? At least on that the cheese bait or the hook for the fish, there was no statutory warning. But for this intelligent human being becomes so a slave of his senses and mind, he gives in. So it is not necessity for survival, yet they give into it because they have created a habit. They're just, you've seen, what you call it, addiction is a habit. They cannot give it up. So what is a habit? A habit is an acquired behavior. So first of all, it is not you're born with. You have acquired it. So something which has been acquired can also be given up. First of all, you need to understand, big bottleneck is we don't want to change ourselves. Many times we put a statement defining ourselves as this is what I am. No, sir, you're not what you think you are. You can be far better than what you are today. So habit is an acquired behavior or a thought pattern which is performed unconsciously. You don't even know, but we behave in a certain way. To give you an example, please watch it out. Habits die very hard. What happened to that? So the times have changed from the typewriter to the computer, but habits die very hard. Newly getting acquainted to the new skill, picking up a smartphone. And this is definitely an oldest habit. Right. Okay. So this is just some examples of, habits, we act through that. So let's take a look at the cycle of how does a habit takes place? How does a habit formation takes place? This process is described by Srila Rupa Goswami in a text called as Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, chapter number 1. I will not go into the technical terminologies, but will give you modern terminology to help you understand. So, this life is not all in all. That's a fundamental principle. Okay. There is a reincarnation. We have had previous lifetimes and we have come and taken another body and moving on. We have got a new set of body, but our subtle body is still the same. Subtle body consists of mind. Mind is a storehouse of experiences, desires, unfulfilled desires. So we are coming from previous lifetime, bringing is this mind, which is a set of unfulfilled desires and experiences. So whatever action we perform, it further strengthens the desire to do it again. Because ye dil mange more. It's never satisfied. We want to do it again. We want to do it more. That's how the habit is created, isn't it? So we have come from from the previous lifetime. We have had a certain set of unfulfilled desires. Now we come into this life. Now there is a desire. Let's say somebody has stolen in the previous lifetime. Because he stole, there is a desire to do it again. Have you experienced this always? When you do something, then you feel like doing it again if you get some kick out of it, if you get some experience of happiness out of it. So now you want to do it again. Just a very rudimentary desire. It becomes more stronger when it becomes focused to a particular object that you want to steal. Imagine you see an iPhone, a new brand iPhone, you feel like you had a desire from previous lifetime to steal because it's a part of the mind. Now the desire becomes more strengthened and focused when you think, I should steal this iPhone. The moment you perform an action, every action has a reaction, and there are two kinds of reaction which are created. What is it? Let's take a look. So it's all happening because of whatever we do in this lifetime. It all begins with whatever we have done in our past life. And of course, we acquire new habits as we associate with people around. So with the previous karma, we already have a certain mindset with which we have come into this lifetime. And then that mindset which means comprises of thoughts and desires, which are created because of certain objects and certain association that we take in this lifetime. Fine, and from the previous lifetime. So there was a thought to steal or a desire to steal, and an action has been performed. When an action is performed, there is a reaction created, and the reaction is of two types. What is the first reaction? Is a psychic, on a psychological level. And what is the reaction at a psychological level? You want to do it more. You want to try it more. If, say, for example, we have a punishment system where a thief is sentenced behind the prison bar. How many of you think it really works? They get ramified. Do you think prisoners get ramified? Yes or no? Right? They cannot get ramified because it is not about physical abuse to the body. It's treatment of the mind which the current prison system doesn't give it. So when they come back, they're habituated. They do it again, knowing very well that I can go behind the prison bar again, but they yet do it because the desire has been created for it, and as soon as they see an opportunity, they grab onto it. So it's a psychological effect. A reaction is created that I want to do it again, and that's how the cycle continues. Second reaction that happens is on a physical level, physiological level. So one is psychological level, second is physiological level. What happens at the physiological level? This whatever act we have performed, the reaction at a physiological level could be in the form of a pain, could be in the form of a pleasure. For example, somebody steals, and if he gets caught, he's punished. When he's not caught, then he uses the money whatever way, and then gives him certain happiness and pleasure. Getting it? So that's at physical level, pain and pleasure. And when this cycle continues, which means if a person continues to repeat, then it becomes a habit trap. Whenever he sees an object, this happens by default. You getting it? Just like I gave an example of that. Let me give another example. It's actually a true story. As in Europe, soccer is very famous. So there was this one soccer game had to happen, and the team had really worked very well, very hard, and they reached to semi-final. Suddenly, their goalie got injured, goalkeeper. Now they don't have a goalkeeper. And the game was scheduled 15 days from now. So the coach was wondering from where do I get a goalkeeper and whatnot. So one day he was walking on a street, and then he saw, the pickup van. And he saw there was a man, There's a vegetable shop. So from the vegetable shop, one man will throw a big pumpkin to this man. He'll catch a pumpkin and put it back into the pickup van. And wherever the pumpkin would fly, this guy was so expert, he will not miss out on the pumpkin. He'll each time catch it. When the coach saw, he saw a future goalkeeper. He was so expert, wherever you throw a pumpkin, he'll capture. So it's perfect. A goalkeeper is supposed to do what? Catch a ball. Perfect. So he said, let me train him, groom him, and we still have a couple of days. He can be our goalkeeper. So now we have a semi-final match. This man is brought in and seems to be doing a good job. So finally, when the game was about to end, now the other team was becoming really aggressive. They came, and one of the front line player, he made a brilliant shot, and everyone thought, nobody can catch this. Nobody can catch this. But this man, he flew in the air. He make a dive, and he caught that ball. And there was a huge uproar. And then there was a huge cry. Why? He got hold of the ball. So when he was working for a pickup van, he'll catch a pumpkin and throw it in the van. So he caught hold of the ball and he threw it into the goal. So he made his own goal. Got it? So when you keep repeating it, going back to the chart again, slide, if you keep repeating it, as soon as you have an object, becomes an automatic trigger. You getting it? It becomes an automatic trigger, and when it becomes an automatic trigger, it is called as habit. Unconsciously, action is being performed. Now you getting it? He unconsciously jumped. For him to catch it was an unconscious act because he had become too good in it. And what was the consequent of step of it? It was the first part was to catch, second part was to put in the pickup van. But he forgot pickup van is not, there's a goal. And he threw the ball inside the goal. That's the point about it. That's how the habit is created. Let's go forward from here. So mind is your friend. Mind can be enemy also. We have already discussed that. This is a diagram of intelligence. Mind being the reins and horses being the other senses being the horses, like that, and soul being the passenger. Fine. Hare Krishna. So intelligence. Something needed? You can have a glass of water. Yeah. Hare Krishna. So intelligence, we have already discussed about intelligence. We need to be on the slide so they can see the slide deck. Intelligence has two functions, discrimination and determination. Discrimination is not about, having information. Discrimination is all about making the distinction between what is right and what is wrong. That is discrimination. There is something being fried around. Even I am getting the teaching now. कुछ यहाँ पे fry हो रहा है, right? Okay, why don't you close the door? Okay, let her come back, and after that we close. There is this whole air of oil thing. All right, determination. Second function of intelligence is determination. What is determination? Ability to desist from the initial nectar of passionate pleasures, which means determination to not to do it. Go back an example of the thief. What he said? He wanted to do it, but he said, no, I will not do it. So that requires a determination, and that's the function of intelligence, like that. So let's take a look at subconscious and conscious mind. For example, take a case of smoking habit. When a person sees a cigarette, how does the mind feels? Mind says, oh, I'm an engineer, I should know how to hold a cigar at least. What would intelligence say? We have already discussed this discussion previously, bringing in a different context. Intelligence will say, but that's a bad habit. Not good for you. Your parents won't like to see you doing this. You may become addicted to doing it. Don't get into this wrong habit. The mind will say, I think it's fun. Everyone is doing it anyways. I should experience what's life at least once. Sounds familiar? And intelligence say, but you fool, why do you hurt yourself by this bad habit? That will waste your money. ruin your good health, may cause you cancer in the future. Stop it. Do not even dream about it. Now what do you think the person would have done? Let me ask all of you. How many of you think the person would have smoked? How many of you think online? How many of you think the person would have smoked? Yes, no. No, actually. Because intelligence did not allow him to do it. Who made the last argument? There was no further argument by mind. If I would have had another argument where mind would have said, I am going to do it. Even if mind yells, unless intelligence yields, because intelligence is the decision maker. So in this case, the person did not smoke. You're getting it? Because intelligence was giving him the right piece of advice. So mind, conscious and subconscious. Subconscious simply accepts automobile, which means there is no thinking only. There is no discussion only. So this discussion would not have happened. Whereas a conscious mind, there is a discussion on pros and cons. What is good, what is bad. And that is how the conscious, as I said, there is a stimuli and there is a response and there is a gap that gives us a freedom to act and create our destiny. It only happens when we cultivate this habit of acting in a more conscious way, giving up our this unconscious life. Generally, we act in a more mechanical way. So if mind is stronger, mind wins. But if intelligence is stronger, we can resist the temptation. Here in this case, intelligence was the last person to speak. So intelligence was stronger. If mind would have continued, and mind would have concluded the last, which means intelligence is not able to defend and argue, then the person would have. So this is a technical dialogue, how it happens. So the role of habits. Life is made of choices. Choices decides our future, and habits activates choices. Right? Kind of habit we have created, according to that, we make a choice. For example, who is a smoke addict? When he looks at a smoke, what is a choice? What is a choice? To smoke. And that is dictated by the habit, because he is habituated. So we make habits, and then the habits makes us. Please speak after me loudly, so your mind is getting to hear that. Watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions.
Watch your words, they become actions.
Watch your actions, they become your habits.
Watch your actions, they become your habits.
Watch your habits, they become your character.
Watch your habits, they become your character.
Watch your character, they become your future.
Watch your character, they become your future.
So it all begins with our thinking. What we think, the thinking gets into words. Words get into action. When actions are repetitively performed, it becomes a habit, which becomes our character, which means my second nature, as we call it, loosely, my second nature. And then our future is determined accordingly. So where do we need to fix it? Change your thinking. Change your thinking, change your world. Is a simple phrase that you can remember. A simple mantra. What you munch on is what you become. If you want to change yourself, you have to change your thinking. Therefore, association of saintly persons, chanting of mantras, mantra meditation that we do, hearing, reading scriptures are so important, because that changes our thinking. So there are good habits, bad habits. Good habits that enhances our overall experience of life. Any examples of good habits? Quickly. What would you call as good habits? Quick. Getting up early. Speaking truth. Depends on to whom you're speaking. Will determine it's a good habit or bad habit. Controlling anger. Being on time. Right? Neat and clean behavior, on maintaining cleanliness around. Good habits like that. It's taking a little time to think of good habits, isn't it? Difficult to find these days. People are munching. What good habit? What good habit? Okay. All right, all right. So let's ask an easy question. Give an example of bad habits. Quick. Smoking. What else? Such habits which can damage our career, relationships, personal lives without even being aware of them. I'll tell you one of the very big bad habit. You know what? More bigger than your smoking, drinking, and all that. Procrastination. Sometime when I get time, I'll speak about this whole psychology of procrastination. Maximum relationship crisis, professional failure, which results into suicides. The root causes procrastination. Procrastination. कल करे सो आज कर, आज करे सो अब कर, पल में परलय होगी फिर करेगा कब. कितने लोगों ने मुहावरा बचपन में याद करा था? हाथ खड़ा करो. बचपन में ये चीजें सिखाई जाती थी स्कूल में. सोचो, स्कूल में भी कुछ सीखने को मिलता था. हाँ, भरोसा नहीं हो रहा. कभी ऐसा स्कूल हुआ करता था जो अच्छी बातें सिखाई जाती थी, तो ये मुहावरा सिखाया जाता था. अगर मुझे स्कूल का कुछ याद है तो यही याद है. अच्छा, अच्छी चीज याद है. I don't remember any of the things, but this was the point to remember. So, some of the examples of bad habits, like being late, thinking negatively, gossiping, TV, internet addiction, or resisting change, being defensive, justifying one's faults, and the last but not the least, procrastination. All right? Okay. How many of you are familiar with these examples? Personally familiar. It's a more personal question, huh? Sounds familiar, right? Okay. So we have a lot of homework to be done. So let's come to the next subject matter now. How to form a habit. 3-step formula. First is trigger. Second is routine. Third is reward. How many of you are part of our Srimad Bhagavatam study circle here? Okay. How many of you online? Those who are attending here, can you switch on your camera so at least I get to know who all of you are there who are part of this? Now, I'll tell you the secret of how we have designed this whole Bhagavatam study circle is based on this 3-step formula which I'm going to teach you. Trigger, routine, and reward. And let me explain you how we are doing Bhagavatam study circle through this, okay? So let's focus on Bhagavatam study circle that we have created now. What is the objective? I've been saying again and again. The objective is not to answer all your doubts. That's not my objective behind that course. My objective behind that course, which I said anyone can join, even a new person can join it, is to create your reading habit. Every day reading, Srila Prabhupada, Vedic wisdom, let's say precisely that way, or Prabhupada books. So that is the only objective behind Bhagavatam study circle. So now I want to create a habit in all of you that you read every day 40 minutes. Let me ask this. How many of you would like to get this habit created in you where you can read every day for 40 minutes? Imagine what kind of person you'll be down the line a year later or so, isn't it? So how we are facilitating this? And this is a real life example because many of you are part of this reading group now. Go back to the presentation. Trigger. Trigger means that reminds you that I have to read. For example, I'll come back to Bhagavatam study circle shortly. Let's say let's talk about Bhagavatam, let's about reading a book, for example. So if you want to read a book every day, a trigger has to be there. Trigger means which reminds you to read. So one thing that you can do is keep that book right next to your bed. So when you go to sleep or when you wake up or when you go into your room, when you have the book right in front of you, you'll be reminded that I should read it. Imagine if you keep the book inside your almirah which you cannot see, the trigger would ever exist. So therefore, those who had joined the Bhagavatam study circle, I said, it was very strongly written that I strongly recommend, if you remember, I had said, I strongly recommend everyone should have a hard copy of Srimad Bhagavatam. Why? Because when you have a physical copy, then the trigger will happen. When you will see the book kept on your table, study table, dining table, or let's say right next to your bed. So this is a place that we are visiting every day. Then you will see and you will be reminded of, I need to read. First thing, trigger. Then creating a routine. How we are creating a routine? So trigger is, one is to have a book, and how we do it, that every morning we have set a time. By 8:30 you will get a reading assignment. Now gradually it will get into your system that if after 8:30 ever I open the group, there would be an instruction to read. Read for 40 minutes this much amount of pages. So that acts as a trigger. Routine, every day. Every day, punctuality, in a particular time we send a message, and then you have a certain time of the day we take out and create. And the very first orientation session I said, I appeal to all of you, please put 40 minutes in your schedule upfront. Because when you have created a schedule or created a time for it, then to make it a habit becomes easy, because you're consciously aware that from 2 to 2:40 is a time for me to read. And routine has been created. Routine means a set time. A fixed time in my schedule has to be there to create a routine. See, this much effort is not needed for you to become a smoker or drunkard. Why? Because good habits almost takes a mountain to move, to cultivate a good habit. When it comes to bad habits, it's just so natural, because that's how this material world is designed. And then reward. And what is a reward? Like every day we give an announcement. Today 250 people read or completed the reading target. Can you imagine when you open and you say 250 people read it and you're one of them? Is a good affirmation. Even if you're not there, it creates a desire. इतनों ने पढ़ा, मैं ही पीछे रह गया, मैं भी पढ़ूंगा. Yes or no? So if we hang on to this formula, a habit of reading Prabhupada book will be created. Is all making sense? And then we conclude this by acknowledging we have a quiz for every chapter where you get distinction and credits accordingly, and then in the end you have a reward in terms of certificate. And then we have special sessions and whatnot. And then we also have weekly overview classes where you have an opportunity, whatever doubts you have had, you can clarify. So you're getting it? So that's how we are created, and that's how the habit is created. Trigger. Now similarly for bad habit is in a similar manner, but it is created very easily. For example, a smoke, and let's say your colleague smokes. So trigger is whenever you're in association, it gets triggered naturally, isn't it? You go out for lunch, he smokes, that triggers. And routine, let's say it's a lunch time, and that's the time you go with him. And what is the reward? With the bad habits, there's an instant gratification, which is not in the case of good habits. How many of you agree? Being on time every day doesn't give you an instant gratification. You may get rewarded for that punctuality by your manager after a year, isn't it? But for any such bad habits which are detrimental for us largely, gives us an immediate gratification, right? Overeating, sleeping late in the night because watching movie. You get an immediate gratification and there are consequences later on to reap. So that's the point about it. So how to deal with bad habits? So we have spoken about how the habits are created, either the good habit and bad habit, but creating a bad habit is fairly simple because there is an immediate reward. In good habits, immediate reward is not there, but we have created a culture of giving a reward by acknowledgements, by giving an opportunity for our audience to ask questions on a daily basis. We are facilitating. There's a lot of work for us to manage almost 800 people who have signed up for this program. But yet, if we do it, imagine you have almost 500 plus people develop a habit after 6 months to everyday read, wisdom literatures. Imagine 2 years down the line, you'll have 500 saintly people walking around because they have created a good habit. So, of course, a little effort, but there's a good dividend that comes for the society. So, how do we deal with bad habits? So, are you all on the same page? Is making some sense? Yes or no? Audience here, are you getting through the points straightforward? Okay. So how to deal with bad habits? So just like creating a habit has a 3-step formula, similarly for dealing with bad habits is a 3-step formula. Short and unique. Not making too many steps. Let's take a look at it. What is the 3-step formula? First, awareness. Second, avoidance. Third is replacement. Awareness, avoidance, and replacement. So let's take a look at what awareness is. Very first thing, that we need to be aware, conscious, that this particular action or behavior of mine is wrong, isn't it? Unless I'm aware of it, then how would I change what I want to change? So the bad habits can be classified as simple bad habits, like eating your nails. Kids do that, a lot of things. Or maybe let's say not washing your plate after eating your food, getting up late. This is mild. Because there are serious bad habits which have grave consequences to your overall well-being, to your relationship, to your professional life, etc., which you all understand like that. For example, smoking. Around 400,000 people die in the US alone because of smoking. Which is a greater number? COVID death, smoking death. Still, we are talking about COVID being the 21st century's greatest pandemic. We talk about it. And for COVID, nobody had to pay to get a virus. For smoking, they pay to get cancer. Alcohol, 40 million Americans are seriously abused alcoholic. 275,000 seriously injured due to drunken driving. Gambling. I mean, these are American statistics. I didn't have Indian statistics. These are slightly old. But just to give you an example, why Scripture says don't do these four things, because these are detrimental. Regardless of which society we live in. We should not. And from the beginning of the time, we have been told not to engage in these kinds of four sinful activities. And the fourth one is meat eating, which is the single most cause of heart disease, is animal fat ingestion. In fact, 30% of all cancers can be prevented by giving up meat eating. And the fourth is illicit relationships. 3 million, which means 30 lakh teenagers get infected with STD. First of all, they don't have young population. बच्ची कुछ भी बह गई. So imagine what's the state of the society today. Therefore, Lord Shri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, ये ही संस्पर्श जाब होगा दुख योनिया एवते आदियंतवंत कांते या नातेषु ramate buddha. So first step is awareness. We need to be aware of what are our mild and grave bad habits. Good enough? And I give you some examples of grave bad habits. Second step is avoidance. Avoid. Now, avoid what? You have to avoid yourself from the trigger point. You getting it? Now, as soon as the object comes, which creates a weak point, whenever we come across an object which triggers us into that habit, if we don't have that object only, where would it create a trigger? So, for example, for a smoker, if the trigger point is at lunch with his friends who are smokers, with which it gets triggered into smoking, what he should do first? Stop smoking or give up association first? What should he do first? He should give smoking, continue going on lunch, or he should give up association? Give up the association of those people. Because the trigger would not happen. Because when trigger happens, you're not yet strong enough to say no to that act of smoking. So give up the bad association. And let me give an example of how important it is. Please watch this wonderful scientific study.
All right, here's the deal. Marshmallow, for you. You can either wait, and I'll give you another one if you wait, or you can eat it now.
Not visible on Zoom.
I'll give you another one, so then you'll have two.
Oh, visible.
But stay in here and stay in the chair till I come back, okay? All right.
I hope all of you can get the sound. Please watch it. Very fantastic experiment.
I'm gonna go do something and then I'll come back.
It smells yummy. Oh, it smells really good.
Watch it carefully. You have some lessons to give it to me. Huh? What did you learn?
All right, so it's up to you. You can have it now or you can wait. Okay? I'll be back. Stay in the chair, okay? Okay.
You understood the terms and condition, right? You should not eat it till I come back. And if you don't eat it, I'll give you double. And if you don't get any.
Alright, so I'm going to leave and then I'll come back, okay? So you can either eat it right now or you can wait. Either way, okay? Okay. How'd you do? Did you do good? You did? Yeah. You wanted to eat it, didn't you? Yeah. So did I tell you to give you another one? Okay, now you can have both. You need them.
Hare Krishna. So the video ends here. It's a very, very important social experiment which was done by the group of psychologists, and they found out when they continued to study these kids for another 10 years, 15 years, they found out all those who were able to control their, or could follow or control their senses, they became successful, people in the society. Whereas those who very easily yielded to the demands of their senses and the mind had to struggle with their life all through. So, first thing is awareness, second is avoidance. So this has both awareness and avoidance principle involved into it. Awareness is understanding to give into mind and senses is not progressive way of living. And avoidance is, just like you saw the young boy, hang on, if I wait, I'll get more. And my future is very bright. And he waited on it. The promise was made by a teacher. He had to put a faith on the teacher. Now what if she doesn't give? So people say, oh, you say in scriptures that is said, if you do this, you'll have a wonderful life experience later on. But who has seen future? So similarly, the young boy didn't knew the teacher is going to do that. Yes or no? Our life is all about faith. We have to put faith in something and then move forward. Can we put forward without putting a faith? When the young boy put forward a faith on that lady that if I do it, then she would award me or reward me. And that's how he was rewarded. And that's the reason that gave him strength. The faith on that gave him a strength to resist. So that's the point about awareness and avoidance. Awareness of both the consequences of effects of bad habits and consequence of following the right living. And the result of that right living may not be immediate, but will happen. And to deal with bad habit is avoid. So therefore scripture says regulated principles of freedom. Ragadvesha vimuktastu vishayan indriyascharan atma vashir vidhyatma prasadam adhigacchati. But a person free from all attachment and aversion, able to control his senses through regulated principles of freedom, can obtain the complete mercy of Lord. So following these four regulated principles, Krishna says, is regulated principles of freedom. Principles of freedom. So avoidance of sinful life and not indulging, it actually paves the way for our true independence. And the third step after awareness and avoidance of dealing with the bad habit is replacement. Simple formula, nothing so rocket science about it. Avoid, first be aware, second avoid, and third is replace. Therefore Krishna says you have to develop a higher taste. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dena rasavarjam rasopasya param drashtva nivartate. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense object remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, He is fixed in consciousness. Param drashtva nivartate. So in Krishna consciousness and spiritual life, it's not a dry process which tells you give up this, give up that. No. More focus is on doing the right things than giving up the bad things. Yes or no? Take to a healthy lifestyle. Engage in reading and hearing to acquire good set of instructions and knowledge. Perform meditation. Eat healthy. Sleep early. Now, when you do all this thing, all the bad habits anyways will be given up. Yes or no? So the emphasis in spiritual life is not much on giving up. The emphasis is on acquiring or taking the right processes. Paramdashta nivartate, and when it happens, when the replacement happens, gradually avoidance and awareness also happens. So how to say no to bad habits? Triple S formula, sustain and abstain method. This is another approach. Starve bad habits, which means, again, avoid all the trigger points, which means the bad people and the bad objects. Supplement good habits, which is the replacement. This is the second formula which we are giving. First was avoidance, awareness, avoidance, and replacement. And now we are giving a triple S formula, which begins from step 2 of the first formula, which is avoidance, replacement, supplement good habits, and again stay away from tempting environment and association, like that. Change our attitude, behavior, and thinking. Change comes from observing logically in every situation. Our attitude determines our behavior, our behavior determines our thinking. Let's put it other way around. Our thinking defines our attitude, an attitude which results into an action, which means behavior, which means lifestyle, further determines our thinking. What it means is, despite understanding the consequences of bad habits, or let's say after even understanding how Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how I am not the body and soul, yet our attitude does not change towards life. Yet we are not taking on to the right practices or spiritual practices, there will not be any change in our behavior. If there is no behavior, means taking on to the right practices. If you're not performing the right practices despite learning all this thing, there would not be any change in your thinking. So our failure is not because spiritual life does not work. Our failure is our resistance to change. We just don't want to change. We want to talk about it. We want to talk about the problems and issues, but we fail to take an action. How many of you agree that there is a serious issue with us? We would not mind talking and speaking about it, but when it comes to taking an action, just like you go to a doctor gives you a pill. So you don't mind spending a time with doctor, talking to people about how sick I am, but when it comes to taking a pill, then I have so many reasons why I should not take a pill. Yes or no? Why I should not take to the right practice. So I often say, focus, don't lose your focus. Do the right thing, think later. First you start doing the right thing, then when the thinking is changed, everything will change for you. That's the point. Change your attitude towards your habit, which means accept responsibilities for the habits that you have picked up. Change your thinking to fix the behavior, which means the habit is nectar. Thinking means we think whatever I do right now will give me nectar, So we have to begin to think about it. Is this really helpful for me, or is it actually creating more trouble for me, like that? Change comes from observing logically in every situation. When I indulge in smoking, I cough so much. I go through so much pain. So actually that is not helpful. That's what I'm thinking. And change your behavior to fix the habit. So behavior, how do we behave? There are two ways people behave. One is a reactive behavior, other is responsible behavior. Reactive means mechanical. This is how I behave. It's a set way of behaving in it, which means stimuli and response. There is no time to think about it. Getting it? There is no gap. Whereas a responsible behavior means when there is a stimuli, then there is my choice. What I want to do it. And then comes my response. That is called as responsible behavior. And reactive behavior, where there is no thinking, I just act on it. So steps needed to change our behavior is, first is called as unconscious incompetence, which means incompetence, you understand? Failure. So we have cultivated certain habits or behavior patterns unconsciously, which makes us make the wrong decisions by default. That is called as unconscious incompetence. Then there is called as conscious incompetence, where now I have become aware of my weaknesses. That I understand when such temptation comes, this is what I react to it. So therefore, I should at least become aware of my weakness. How many of us are actually aware of your weakness? You're aware of some weakness. Are you aware of all our weakness? Or the research is under process? Yes? The work is under process? So first of all, we are still living our life a lot at unconscious incompetence. Slowly, we are coming to conscious incompetence. From there, when we come to the stage of awareness, then comes the third step, called as conscious competence. Now, where I make the right decision. A responsible behavior, right? In such situation, I cannot do it where thinking is, no, this is wrong. And reflecting on what all happens when I make this decision, that becomes conscious competence. For example, okay, I'm not going to sleep late. I'm going to sleep by 9 o'clock so I can get up by 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. Early morning hours are so perfect for meditation, spiritual practice, and also doing my work. Now that is conscious competence. You're creating a competence for yourself consciously by making sure you sleep early and put an alarm, wake up early. You continue doing it for a while, then it becomes unconscious competence. Yes or no? Now nobody has to tell you sleep early. You by default feel sleepy by 9 o'clock. Like one of our devotees feeling sleepy at 8 o'clock right now. So, you just begin to feel like, I have to take rest now because the practice have been created. And that becomes unconscious competence. And that is what gives you Hare Krishna. हाँ थोड़ा साउंड ट्रैक था मैं भी सरप्राइज हो गया the new you. So my question to all of you, how many of you would like to have a newer version, upgraded version in 2022? How many of you think you need an upgraded version? You're done with this old version of what you are. Where is our online audience? Give me a hands up. So you understand that there needs to be a newer version of you. You have lived enough with your old self. All right. Okay, coming to the conclusion now, moving forward. Why is it difficult to break habits, right? We have discussed, but yet there is difficulty to doing that. There is something called as cognitive script. These are the unconscious automatic thoughts that we have when we encounter a situation. This is about reactive behavior. To move from the unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence is a struggle. And to move from conscious incompetence to conscious competence is a greater struggle. But from there to move to unconscious competence is not such a big struggle, if you're able to come to the step 3. So reason is because there are scripts, our certain behaviors are set into it. For an example, there was one businessman who was very attached to his business. He had this kirani ki dukan, grocery store. This is a villager, well-to-do man. But he was too attached to his business. And he had 4 grown-up sons. And he would not let his grown-up sons, married and having kids, make any business decision. They really all got fed up from this old man. They thought there's only one way of fixing this old man from his attachment to his business and to all his possession that he has. Send him away for some dham yatra. He'll get some holy association. His mind will get fixed. Mind will become a little detached. Anyways, you need to understand he'll give up his body in some time. Finally, the father, which was very stubborn, agreed. And the old man went out on a pilgrimage with one sadhu. All the facilities were arranged. And sadhu tried teaching him everything he did. He took him to the dham, temples, everything. But this man was still the same. Until one day, when the sadhu brought him to a crematorium. Shamshan Ghat. When this man was brought to crematorium, suddenly he underwent transformation. And he began to repent. In fact, cry, "Oh God, I've wasted all my life." And sadhu was like, finally finally something clicked. He understood that he has wasted his life, thinking about all his money, possession, and whatnot. So Sadhu like, okay, finally I have done my job. I have brought about the transformation. So when the man was done complaining and yelling and about repenting for how he wasted his life attached and how he wasted, he didn't say, he said, I wasted my life. So when he became a little sober up, so Sadhu asked, so what have you learnt? He said, I wasted my life doing kirane ka business. There's so much more money in having a woods and building up for crematorium. So old habits die hard. That's the point. The scripts doesn't change that easily. That's the point of sharing here. So one more concluding point. How to say no to bad habits. Change conditioning by changing scripts written in your mind. So where do we get our scripts from? We get our scripts from the books that we read, the movies that we watch, the music we listen, and the friends we keep. So we need to change all these. Unless the books that we read, the news that we watch, the programs that we see, the movies, the music that we listen, and the friends that we keep, if they are not changed, you're not changing. You will remain the old version, outdated version. Okay? That's the point. That's the reason I made this explanation here. To conclude with, when at all nothing works, life seems to be hopeless, then comes the Brahmastra. Step 4. That is called as praying. And what prayer you want to offer? Oh Lord, you have to repeat after me. Oh Lord. थोड़े जोश से बोलो यार. Give me the courage.
Give me the courage
to change the things
which
I can
can
and ought to be changed.
The serenity
to accept the things which cannot be changed. And the wisdom to know the difference. मुझे शक्ति दें, give me the strength to change what I can. Give me the peace of mind to accept the truth which I cannot change, and the wisdom to know what I can and what I cannot. Meaningful prayer? We were always caught into it. What I can do, we don't do it. What I cannot do, we try to do it, and we waste our human form of life. So it is said, prayers goes up and blessings come down. Hare Krishna. Krishna says, Ananyas chintayantu mam ye jana parupasate tesham nityabhuktanam yoga shemam vamyam. I will protect you. But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. With this, we come to the conclusion of today's discussion. And the points that we discussed and learned today's topic are: what are habits? How are the bad habits formed? Two functions of intelligence, discrimination and determination. Therefore, it is very important to have notes when you're listening. You don't make notes, then what you remember? Understanding the conscious and the subconscious mind. We discussed about how to form a habit. 3 steps. What are the 3-step formula?
Trigger, routine, and reward.
Yes, trigger, routine, and reward. And I gave you an example. That's how we have designed our Srimad Bhagavatam study group. Okay, how do you break a bad habit? Dr. Leena, you can go ahead.
That is to be aware that you have a bad habit.
Okay.
To create a route and to replace it.
No, second step was avoidance. Awareness, avoidance, and replacement. This is how we break the bad habit. Okay? Going back to the slide. So how to form a habit, 3 steps, and how to say no to bad habits. And that's it for today. When we meet next week, we'll be concluding our mind management series, where we'll talk the final topic, cultivating tolerance. Do you see a need for it? Raise your hands who feel there is a need for cultivating some tolerance today. Okay, so good. So makes sense, it's part of the mind management. So with that, We will see you all next week unless anyone has any questions or clarification. Traditionally, when I would do this program, not online but offline, generally we used to end this program with Kirtans, but now it's not possible much to do it on an online forum. So fine. Hare Krishna. So we have some hands up. May I request those who want to ask question, if you can switch on your camera so at least I know who I'm speaking to. And then you can go ahead and ask a question.
Prabhuji, first question is, where is the mind situated in the body?
Mind is all over. It is a brain which is situated at the top, but mind is all over the body. Next.
Okay. May I request the admin to ask my query? Okay, the need is to abstain from bad people, but it is difficult to identify the bad people, and even if we do so, much more difficult to cut off relations. Some tips on that, please.
So you become such a good person that they get transformed in your association and become a good person. So if you can, rather than getting victimized by their association, you should make them a good person in your association. Srila Prabhupada, when he went to America, was all alone. And didn't he transform everyone there? So we should become such a staunch spiritualist and practitioner. We should become so spiritually strong that we are able to transform others in our association. Anything else, Bharat Bhushan Prabhu?
Is it is it possible to change the habit?
What we just discussed today. Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Whoever asked the question, you can ask that person to watch the recording again. Maybe missed. Okay.
Sure. The next question is how to stop triggering our emotion.
How to stop triggering? I mean, why do you want to stop triggering emotion? You want to become a robot or what? It seems like you had enough with the human form of life. Why do you want to stop being a human? Being a human means there are emotions. So there is no question of stopping to stop the triggering of emotions. I guess you need to be more specific what you mean by that.
Some habits come from previous life. What can be done about that, Prabhuji? They take control over us.
Yes, that's what we discussed, how the habits are formed. Either they are formed through the association that we take or because of what we have done in the previous lifetime. For either of it, the formulas that we discuss trigger, routine and reward for creating the good habits. And to give up the bad habits, you have to be aware of it, avoid it and replace it. And the best way of doing it, of all this, creating a good habit and bad habit, one easy way, only one-step formula. Although I gave you 3-step formula for both, but one-step formula is live with the sadhus. If you get in the association sadhus, your good habits will be created naturally, your bad habits will go away naturally. Okay?
You mentioned that resisting change is a bad habit. One example you were showing. So how the resisting change is a bad habit?
It's a good habit?
You were showing in PPT as
no, I'm asking, resisting change is a good habit? If it is not, it's a bad habit. There's a gray area.
Resisting things means it may be...
No, resisting change. You're changing your statement.
Resisting change is...
So my question is, you're asking resisting change is a bad habit. So answer my question. Is resisting change a good habit? So alright, you take your time to think and you get an answer.
No, on bad habit, if we are trying to resist, then this change means I'm fall prey to any bad habits.
Right now you are surrounded by bad habits. Why you're thinking about when I'm surrounded with a good habit, then resisting change is good. Right now in which situation you are? You're a Paramhamsa, you're a conditioned being right now.
Condition.
So which situation you're thinking about it? Alright? So in your which situation, you're already surrounded by bad habits, so resisting change in our situation is bad. And then saying when I'm Paramhamsa, then resisting change is good. Then you ask a question when you're in that stage. Okay. Hare Krishna, thank you all for your... Okay, I do see something. Yes, Mother has a question here. Please pass on the mic.
Does Bhagavad Gita say anything about the duration of developing a good habit. Like it is says in many of the researches and studies that it takes 21 days to develop a good habit. And is
See,
there any
Bhagavad Gita
duration?
was spoken at the battlefield with a certain purpose and objective. It was not a scientific study which was done on the subject matter of habits. That is not the core subject of Bhagavad Gita. It is just during the course of discussion, Krishna mentions that how you can deal with different problems. And to elaborate and do further research on it is our subject matter. If that discussion was happening with Arjuna and Krishna in the class of psychology every day, there you can expect details like that. So when you have to look onto the subject, you have to understand in what situation that subject was spoken. So we can't expect that Krishna would say, Arjuna, you'll have this much time to change. And even if Krishna would address that, that would have been for a Dwapar Yuga residence, where situations way different in terms of how much time would take for us to change for them and for us, which would not hold true for us. So Bhagavad Gita, every single thing is universal message, which is beyond time, place, circumstance. But when you put a parameter of time, so what was true for them would not be true for us. They had a long duration. We don't have a long duration. So there is no discussion on this thing which changes with time. All right. So thank you all for joining in. We'll meet next week for the concluding session. And all of you, if you have not yet joined Bhagavatam Study Circle to create a habit of reading every day, please do that. Don't worry if you are new or old. I'm pretty sure at least it will create a good habit of reading every day Srila Prabhupada books. So that's it for today at my end. Thank you all for your kind attention. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ki